Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Ralston Speaks, brought to you by the UNIFIC Brotherhood. Today, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, kings and queens, we are going to focus on capitalism. Capitalism has been running this country since it was founded. Capitalism rules our government, it influences our government, and it influences our people and how they vote. I will explain this in a few minutes, but first I would like to paint for you another picture. This picture that I am painting, it is an example and an actual map of how this country got to be in the position where it is today. Bear with me, if you will, as I paint this picture. Now imagine a man and a woman getting off a boat in, let's say, Plymouth Rock. They have some implements on this boat: a hoe, a rake, a plow, some seed corn. This man and this woman, they can profitably farm, we'll say, 5 acres. They mark out their 5-acre plot and they start breaking ground. Now, hopefully this man and this woman have enough saved up to sustain them till their harvest. Hopefully there's a mercantile within traveling distance that they may be able to borrow from to get them to the harvest. Now, this 5 acres of ground that they broke, they plant their seed corn and various other crops to sustain them. They work day in and day out. Now, if there's no drought, if one of them does not die of the plague, come harvest time, they harvest their crops. They put up enough crops to last them through the hard winter. They sell the surplus to get cash to buy more seed corn, coffee, beans, sugar, gingham, cloth to make clothes, and hopefully ammunition and molasses. And hopefully save up enough money to get them through the rough winter ahead. Now, at this rate, they might have $2 or $3 left over that they save and put away after scrimping and trading. And if they have fish on their land, they can sell fish. If they have an apple tree, they can sell apples. They can make apple pies and make some other income. You get my idea. Now, at this rate, this $2 or $3, this 5 acres, year after year, season after season, harvest after harvest that they accumulate, it would take them 10 to 15 years. If not one of them died of the plague, or broke a leg, or killed by a native. So this 5 acres that they had, in a couple years, they might be able to purchase another acre. So unless they had children along the way, their lot would get a lot easier after the child grew up and came to an age where they could labor alongside their mother and their father. So this, let's say 6 acres now, it would take them 10 to 15 years to save up enough money to hopefully send back to the old world for a cousin or a nephew or aunt or uncle to come and help them so they could pool their labor together and become a little bit more profitable. They would never retire. They would have to work into their old age. Now, introduce to them, let's be kind and say 5 African slaves that they might have borrowed from a neighboring plantation in return for the promise of the crops that these slaves could harvest. Now, these 5 African slaves, now we're going to be kind to these settlers, and we're going to say each slave could and did farm 2 acres by themselves. Now, this 2 acres with the 5 comes to 10 extra acres. Now, they lived frugally off of 5. Now, they've got 10. They didn't have to pay this forced labor. They barely had to feed them. They only had to give them enough sustenance so that they could wake up at dawn the next day and labor to sunset the next night. So we've got now 10 acres where they used to live. We've got 15 acres where they used to live off of 5. That extra 10 acres was extra income, surplus income that they gained with no monetary expenditure. So they could pocket some of the money and live better lives, and they could turn that extra profit into the economy. Now let's advance 10, 20, 30 years, and we have the plantations forming. Plantations had 100, 200, up to 500 African slaves. Those 2, 3, 4, 500 slaves and the original plantation owner can live off of 5, their profitability jumped 100, 200, 300% with very little monetary expenditure. So now they have a huge influx of funds flowing into the economy. That extra funds could fund ships, military, arms, ammunition, bolster trade. Trade bolstered, not only bolstered, but it overcompensated. The money was flowing in hand over fist, and the only thing the slaves had to do was grow their own crops that they ate. There was no money expended. The only money that outflowed was when they had to purchase another slave. And if they raped the slaves, then they had more free labor, and if the slaves gave birth, which they encouraged, then they had even more free labor, with the only outcome of money was from the original 5, 10, 20 that they had originally bought. You see where I'm going with this? This economy just bolstered and bolstered and bolstered. That's how this country came to be the superpower that it is today. Now, what I'm here to tell you this evening, ladies and gentlemen, sisters and brothers, kings and queens, is that we are funding our own downfall. We are funding the very tyrannical campaign in which is keeping us down and under control. How, may you ask? I have one very strong example, and that is on Monday morning to Monday afternoon, and if you're a little slow and lackadaisical, it might trickle into Tuesday, maybe Wednesday. But every Monday, like clockwork, billions, ladies and gentlemen, of dollars flows as it is deposited into white banks. By whom, may you ask? Well, African American parishioners from their tithes and offerings. Now, 99% of this money flows into white banks. There are a slight few that will deposit their money into black banks and black credit unions. Now, on a future video, I will give you the list of these black banks and these black credit unions, and I would hope that you would patronize them and put your funds and your deposits into these banks. Why? Because all the billions of dollars that flow into white banks on a weekly basis, not one of those banks would give any loans whatsoever to any of those black parishioners that have all their money. Now, these churches might get tax breaks, but that's just about all. Now, of those millions of dollars, we all know that when you deposit money into a bank, that bank takes your funds, invests it in the stock market and various other investment schemes, like we say, to make themselves rich off of your money that they give you none of in return. Why do I say none of? Because we all know if we have a savings account, you deposit $1,000 into that savings account, you let it sit for a year, you check your account, you have $1,000.03. So, we are funding the very tyrannical organization that is keeping us down. I call on black pastors, bishops, elders, and ministers to evaluate where your money is going, and if it's not benefiting your parishioners, please find another establishment for you to deposit their funds. Yes, this money is theirs. So that's one thing. Now, capitalism has been at the forefront of our country since the beginning. Capitalism has influenced our government policies. Let me give you a prime idea. Many of the people that supported Trump, despite his racist rhetoric, his sexism, and his bigotry, they ignored that. That was the least of their worries. If they weren't involved in it and it didn't affect them, they did not care. Why? Because Donald J. Trump promised them riches. Tax breaks to make the rich richer, and the middle class, upper middle class. He promised all of this, and when it didn't come to fruition, when they found that he was just like any other politician, blowing hot air and smoke, then they turned on him. They ignored the fact that he was a racist, a sexist, and a bigot, because they were hoping that they would get a larger portion of the American pie. Now, there are exceptions to this rule of his support, because there are the redneck, trailer trash hillbillies and white supremacists. They supported him out of ignorance and hatred, having no idea that Donald J. Trump would rather kiss a black baby at a MAGA rally. Why there would be one at a MAGA rally, I do not know. But Donald J. Trump would rather kiss a black baby at a MAGA rally than visit any one of them in any of their trailer parks. And you can take that to the bank. Well, if you are a redneck trailer trash hillbilly, then you can take that to the shoebox hidden under your bed or in your bedroom closet. So, I call on pastors, ministers, elders, and preachers of the black community to stop putting your money in a white bank that will not give not one of your parishioners a loan. Moving right along to capitalism, I have an example for you. Now, we all know our Asian brothers and sisters. They are a cohesive unit. They support one another without question. Let's say we have $1. That $1 in the Asian community can and will and does stay in that Asian community, we'll say, for 6 to 7 days. Why 6 or 7 days? Because they have resources available. Their food comes from overseas that was grown in the Philippines, China, Japan, Singapore. They have their own stores, their own place, their own establishment to eat. They have their own lawyers, their own doctors. They keep the money in their community, and the only time that money has to leave the community, and inevitably it's going to, would be if there's something that community does not produce. Gasoline, electricity, cars, building materials, bricks, concrete, things of that nature. That money inevitably has to leave, but before it leaves, it has helped the community greatly before it left. You take a Latino community. That money stays within their community just as well, if not longer. Now let's look for a moment at the money in an African American community. Now, unless there are African American barbershops, African Jamaican stores, restaurants, that is the only time that money, and that's very few dollars, that is spent on those aforementioned establishments. We have to support our colored businesses, people. We have to keep the money within the community, because the loss of that money in the Caucasian community will get their attention now, because capitalism rules this country. So when I said that the $1 would stay in the Asian community, we'll say 6 or 7 days, whereas in an African American community, unless it's spent at a barbershop or a restaurant or a grocery store, leaves within hours. We have nothing of our own to support and bolster our own communities. Now, there are some things that it's inevitable that we have to spend it on, because no one has these things. We can't pay. We don't have our own schools. No one has their own schools. So we have to put our money by taxes into the schools and automobiles. We don't make our own automobiles, but anything other than that, grocery stores, clothing, I say I'm calling on all of us to help support one another. It has to be. We have to stop the black on black crime, as we all know. We have to stop the stereotypes where everything black is bad. Black ball, black male. Black Friday? Really? Some of us play pool, billiards. We all know how billiards is won and played. The white ball knocks off all the colors on the table, and to win the game, it finally knocks off the black one. Well, you think that's a coincidence? I have noticed that there's a song out called Blue on Black. Well, we all know who the boys in blue are, but when exactly did they become blue on black? Is it because they are over us, they lord over us? And by the way, when did protect and serve become bully, harass, and kill? We will get to those topics on a later video. But now, I would just like to say that money is not only the root of all evil, but it rules this country. This video has been about money. Think about where your money goes. Think about where your money goes. Now, on a later video, as I said, we will get into where I would like for you and me to deposit our direct deposits in our money. You remember what happened to Black Wall Street? Well, it was undermined from within and sabotaged from without, and it's no longer. We are going to have our own stock market. We are going to have our own banks. We are going to become more self-sufficient. We cannot live in this country totally separate, but we have to be more self-reliant, because many people refuse to raise their voice and have their words spoken as loudly, because they know they have to depend on their white bosses and the white corporations that they work for. We all have to. I do. Yet, it is my choice where I spend my money. And we all have to make sacrifices in the choices where we spend our money. I haven't I haven't eaten or dined at a Wendy's, a Taco Bell, Olive Garden, and I have a list of all the places that contributed to the Trump campaign fund. What does that tell me? The same thing it should tell you, that although you spend your money at those establishments and they will take it, the overall conception, the overall attitude of these corporations is, we don't care about you as a people. We just want your money. So let's limit the amount of money that they have, that we are giving them to vacation in the Cayman Islands, the funding of their offshore bank accounts, of their private schools that our money is sending their children to. We are going to start our campaign for equality, and it's not going to be by force. It's going to be monetarily. Ladies and gentlemen, I am excited of thinking about the outcome of where our struggle is going to end us as a people. I'm excited, and I hope you are too. My name is Ralston. Thank you for listening.